What's up, everybody? I haven't posted a video in a while. Haven't really bought much. Haven't had much to say. But I was cleaning up in the gym here today, and I did come up with a little topic I thought would maybe be interesting to talk about from someone who's had a home gym for a while, and that's how much weight should you buy. To break down what weight we have 7 plates, 2 55s, 2 35s, 6 quarters, 8 10s, 4 nickels, 2 2.5s, and a partridge in a pear tree. So, if someone were to ask me, how much weight do you think I should buy? I think it depends on. You kind of got 3 factors. First factor is how many people are working out at the same time. Second factor is what equipment do you have, and the third factor is how much storage do you have. To talk about the first one is how many people are working out. A lot of you fellas, if it's you and your wife in your garage gym. So first, I would say size your plates according to your max squat or your max deadlift. If you got a 500-pound squat, I would say you need 10 plates. You're going to want to put 5 plates on each side. If you got a 600-pound deadlift, I think you need 6 plates. You need 12 plates to go 6 on each side. You're going to want to be able to peel them and not have to deal with a bunch of quarters and 35s and stuff like that. So size your plates according to kind of your heaviest lift. And the other thing to remember is if you're working out with someone, what are they going to be working up to? So I'm going to tell you that every female I've worked out with has never used more than a set of plates on a lift, whether it's squat or deadlifts or whatever. So I would take that into account. If it's you and your wife, if you have a 500-pound squat, more than likely she's not going to rock more than a 180. I mean, that's still a lot, I would say. If she loads up plates, it's going to be rare, and you've got a pretty strong lady on your hands if she can. So size, thinking of those 2 things, and size according to what's actually realistic, not your bro thoughts about things. If you got a 400-pound squat right now, and you're 35 years old, there's not much of a chance of you hitting a 600-pound squat. It's a rare thing and to do it, it's unlikely you're going to do it in your garage gym. So if you actually get up to that spot, you can always buy an extra set, but 45s are expensive, and you have to store them, and they're big. And I would say, be honest with yourself and look at what's realistic. And then with your partner, whoever it is, whether it's your gym buddy or your wife or whatever, look at if you got a 400-pound squat and you're going to work with them in your garage gym. Are you using the same bar, or you got 2 bars? Because on a squat rack, you can squat 2 to a side. 2 in a rack. Put 1 bar on one side and 1 bar on the other, and then you don't have to peel weights. So you want to buy 2 bars, but then you got to have 2 sets of weights. And if one of you've got a 400-pound squat, the other one's got a 300-pound squat, well, you're looking at 14 plates. So think about who you're going to work out with and how strong they are, and size up to that stuff. The next thing I would tell you to talk about is your equipment. And I'm going to give you an example, and that's our Rhino. And over here is our leg extension, leg curl. We always keep weight on there because we are never going to go under this base weight. 180 is kind of a warm-up weight. I think maybe our wives, when they do the Rhino, they might pull a plate off each side, but they're still starting it at a plate on each side. So if you're going to maybe want to keep some base weight on a piece of machinery, maybe you have a leg press and you don't ever want to just start from 0 because you're never going to do that and it's yours. You might consider buying some of that extra weight from where you're always going to start from. So then you don't have to move a bunch of stuff around the gym. So it's really nice to keep these there and to keep that plate over there and that quarter there, because we don't have to cart them across the gym, and then we have enough plates elsewhere, there and here, to not really need them unless we're got 2 or 3 people at a time here and there's a dramatic need. It's rare that actually happens, and so it's nice to have weight sitting there that we don't have to move around to save ourselves some time and effort. So that's the other thing I would kind of say is look at your stationary things. Oh, and also counterweight. So this leg extension needs counterweight. If you don't have it and you're doing heavy leg extensions, you're going to tip it over. Man, buy junk weights for that. I mean, if you could get away with cinder blocks, do it. But I bought those cheap 45s. They're non-calibrated. They're cheap just because they're just counterweights. They have never moved from that spot since the day I bought them. So always consider that. The next thing I want you to consider is your storage. If you're going to have to put these, you're going to have to store these. Are you going to buy a weight tree? If you're going to store them on your rack, you got to buy these posts. But there's things that you got to think about when it comes to your posts. If you're going to store weight on your rack, and how big is your rack? It, like this right here, it may give you limitations. For example, I cannot move these stops above this without having to take all that off and move it up and down. And that's a lot of work to take. If this is loaded up, sometimes we have 4 or 5 plates on it, to unload all those just to move it up 2 or 3 spots so that I can move my stops up a little bit. Man, that's a lot of work per side for just this one little thing. So you remember, if you're hanging them on your rack, it ends up maybe presenting logistical problems. Let's say you have them really high and you store your plates up high. Well, maybe you wanted to have your J cups up high to do squats right here. And now you can't because the weights are blocking your J cups. Or there's times where you can be inside the rack, and if you're doing something and if you have a plate on the bar and you have plates hanging off the rack, they can hit each other in the middle of your movement. Because now if I'm got my plates on here, I've really reduced the size of my rack by the width of the radius of that weight. And so I now have that much less of a rack, because if I don't, then my weights could hit on the bar, could hit that and affect my lift. And so remember that when you're dealing with your storage. There's logistical problems hanging things on your on your rack. Yes, it's convenient, and yes, it's cheaper, but there's things you need to worry about. Those racks, they have the racks with the extra set of posts. Those are awesome because that does give you that little bit of extra space to use that front post to hang your weights on. And I would say that's ideal if you're going to do that. The weight tree is awesome. I don't think it's not an expensive thing to buy. And so I recommend it because they have casters and it can move around. Then you have dumbbells. So dumbbells are so expensive. They're I think $250 to $3 a pound now. A set of hundreds can cost you $250, $300. So you're a couple grand in if you want to buy dumbbells with 5-pound increments. If that's too much, buy 10-pound increments, and size it accordingly. If you're never going to use the hundreds, don't buy them. Think realistically. Are you ever going to use those hundreds? So your wallet's where you size first, but then think about what you're actually going to use. I always try to say, remember, there's sometimes this gym services 6 adults, and sometimes we do get 4 in here at the same time working out. We also have trained other people. We've done some private training and stuff like that in here. So it does help us to have access to all these weights. But remember the cost to store them. That Rogue shelf was $900. It took me 3 years to finally decide to spend that much money on a shelf. And then the square footage. You're looking at 15 feet long of storage space for dumbbells. That storage space is not free in terms of what you pay for it in your house or whatever. So always remember that stuff. Storage has a cost. Lastly, the kettlebells. I'm going to tell you, if you haven't used kettlebells, you don't have to do like the crazy kettlebell workouts. We do things like your bent over rows, your upright rows, the things, a pulling motion is much more, that kettlebell slides through the air, in my opinion, in a much more comfortable way than a dumbbell. If you're doing lunges and you're holding lunges, holding kettlebells, I feel like is much more comfortable. With the weight hanging below the handle, it's just much more comfortable to use kettlebells. So having a set of some kettlebells around is actually, and you use them. Upright rows, I much prefer doing those than the hundreds. Those are, I think, 106s. Or not upright rows, I wish, bent over rows. They just glide through the air easier. You're not spending time when you have a dumbbell in your hand, you're spending so much time balancing it left and right because there's a weight on both sides. The kettlebells, you don't balance. The weight's just hanging there. You don't have to balance. You just have to hold on. And so you're getting rid of that left to right action on your wrist and your forearms, and that's taxing you. And now you can just focus on getting the exercise done. So I do feel like there's a good benefit to those. But again, that's money. I don't think kettlebells are quite as expensive as a dumbbell, but they're still expensive. And I think now they have like these little attachments to turn your dumbbell into a kettlebell. I haven't tried those. But anyways, that's where all I really wanted to say. It's a kind of a generic topic. It's not something I think that really I usually try to review products, but also your bars. How many bars do you want? We have 3 bars, 3 Ohio bars, because they get used. And then we have things like the M3 bar right here. We have a trap bar down there. We have all the specialty bars over there. And the other thing to consider with those, you got to have a place to store them. You have to have a place to put them. That trap bar doesn't sit somewhere easy, so we find a place to lean it. That M3 bar doesn't fit on the little rack that we have over here. So where are you going to store your bars? Where are you going to store your handles for your cable machine? That's a big heavy bar right there for the cable machine. And there's that one too. So where do you store all your stuff? Storage is actually something you have to consider logistically when you're building your home gym. Where are you going to put stuff? And you got to maximize that, and also have convenience, because if it's too inconvenient to go get it, you'll never use it. And so there's all that stuff. That's pretty much all I wanted to say. Kind of an odd topic, but it was something I was thinking about when I was working out today. And I think it's pretty relevant if you're building out your home gym. For anyone maybe who's clicked on this video, on some things to think about that I never thought about as we started this gym. I never thought about space and storage and the what would happen if I hung my weights on my rack, and what that meant, in the middle of my squat if I stepped too far back and my weights hit. Or the big one is box squats. If you sit down, when you sit down, you rock back. And so you have to sit a lot more forward in your rack than you actually feel comfortable doing, because if you don't, you sit down, and then once you kind of rock back in your box squat, your weight can hit the weight on your bar can hit the weight on your rack. So all those things you got to think about. I never thought about them. So hearing someone talk about them may be beneficial to 1 or 2 people. And if I can save you guys a couple $100 or whatever, man, that's great. Hope everyone enjoyed it. Take care. If you have any questions, I'm pretty responsive. Sometimes it might take me a day or 3, but I try to be pretty responsive on the channel. Again, this is just something I do as a hobby, kind of pay it forward, because sometimes I watch other guys' videos that might help me out, and I'm appreciative of that. So take care. Lift hard and lift heavy, and best of luck, and God bless.